design and engineering of this project?
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but was there an amount added to that?
There was discussion about adding money to design monitoring wells. However, after review of our original proposal, that was already included in that, so there was no additional funds requested.
Okay.
It was requested by the state that we make sure that that's in there and add money if necessary. But since it was already included in the cost, no money was requested in addition to what we'd already requested.
Okay.
And that, like I said, we have preliminary approval and it has cleared the review of the finance officer, so it should be getting final approval fairly soon.
When we call it revolving, I mean, it's capped at 250,000. Is it something that would be replenished as we go, or it's simply a $250,000 grant?
Well, it's from the state revolving fund, which it's kind of a bad name, but the $250,000 grant is a DWR grant. It is solely just a grant. Once it's gone, it's gone.
Okay.
But the state revolving fund does have continual applications.
Is it Prop 1 money?
In part, yes.
Okay.
The state revolving fund has funding from various sources throughout state and federal levels. The $250,000, I'm not entirely sure what the makeup of that is, but it is a DWR grant. But yeah, that is specifically for the design phase. We should be seeing approval on it fairly soon. And because we already have preliminary approval, as long as we're able to keep our audits in line and keep our finances straight, future approvals should go much faster.
Okay.
And we should be able to get additional money as necessary as we go forward.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on the discussion?
Yeah, Kelly, or do you have a rough idea of how much, what the total cost of this thing's gonna be? I mean, forget about the grants and everything. I mean, how much is it gonna cost this little district?
So the initial estimate, and this is a conservative estimate, but the longer this takes, the higher costs get. The initial estimate was a little over $6 million to completely rebuild the plant with a new process with tertiary water. That doesn't include any offsets from the state for that kind of development. It doesn't, that if we were just to pay cash for it today, it'd be around $6 million. We are trying very diligently to get as much grant money as possible to help offset that, thusly offsetting rate increases. But the reality is we're not going to get 100% financing. We were trying to, like I mentioned before, we're trying to make this sustainable so that it reduces our annual operating costs, which is really what's going to hurt the district in the long run. Is not necessarily the loan payment, it's going to be how much it costs every year to operate it. So we're trying to do whatever we can now to minimize that moving forward. It may cost slightly more now, but if it saves us $100,000 a year or $50,000 a year going forward, then it's money well spent.
So we're looking at $6 million plus that the district has to actually come up with. I mean, over and above the grants and so on. I mean, it's all taxpayer dollars, but.
Well, the $6 million would be the total. That would be if we paid cash today.
Yeah. Okay.
We've already received a $177,000 grant to do the initial study, which enabled us to get the $250,000 grant to do the design. So by the time we actually start spending our money, I mean, we're spending our money now, but it's all reimbursed through the end of design. Once we get to the end of the design, we will have a project that's ready to go that essentially the district didn't pay anything for. It is all grant money, so it is all taxpayer money, but it's taxpayer money from all over the state and all over the United States.
Yeah.
So we were trying to minimize the overall impact, but there is an impact.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have any board comments?
How long will it be to construct? Will it take? Because it says that we have a year and 11 months left for the capacity.
So assuming that we are able to get final approval on the $250,000 grant, the goal is to have construction drawings done by the end of this year, this calendar year, which is a very ambitious goal, but it's our goal nonetheless. Assuming we can do that and have our permitting in line by the same time, then we can consider starting the first part of next year, which would give us roughly a year and 3 months, a year and 7 months to build. Because we are building this plant at the site of an existing plant, there is a lot of logistical problems that have to be worked out before we can do anything. Some of the buildings that we need to install are in the place of ponds, so we have to get rid of the pond before we can build the building. But I guess the answer to your question is we would probably be starting around, hopefully around the first of the year, assuming we can get financing, assuming that our plans can get done in that time frame. Our district engineer has assured me that that is a possibility. Permitting process may take us longer, although I think that the appropriate agencies are already on board, so they should be able to help us develop a plan that's going to streamline the process going through permitting. But by all means, we are fully intending on meeting our goal of March 2021 to having a fully operational plant that meets all the requirements from the Water Quality Control Board and whatever permitting they decide that we need to have in order to operate that plant and protect the environment.
Any other board comment?
So with the permitting process we're gonna be here on track enough, we're about CEQA coming up or any of that other,
CEQA, we have already started CEQA. CEQA can be a very short process or it can be a very, very long process. So because we're already a treatment plant, the environmental process is kind of truncated.
Okay.
Although there is still the main requirements to meet. We still have biological requirements, archaeological requirements, air pollution requirements. The list goes on and on. But
And hopefully no kit fox showing up in a bush.
oh no, there's no kit fox there.
Red-legged frog?
There is none.
There's no frogs.
Burrowing owls?
Yeah.
The skunks ate the frogs and the owls.
Fairy shrimp?
We dried out the pond before the fairy shrimp came. The permitting process, although we should be in line, like I said, we started CEQA already. The design portion of this project includes the majority of CEQA, and except for the on-site requirements while we're building, should have all the CEQA and any EIR information done by the time we get done with the plan. So realistically, if the plans are held up, it's probably because there was some environmental factor that was holding up the final design. But that does not mean that we couldn't pursue construction prior to the final design of the plant, as long as the major components were located and we were able to identify what those environmental problems are and have a plan to mitigate them before construction started.
I don't want any CEQA lawsuits, that's what
Well, you and me both. I'm done with lawsuits. I'm really tired of them.
Okay.
Any other board comment?
But our new plant will not stink like Castle's, will it?
No, actually, the plants that we toured, they're the same process. We're no different in smell or characteristic as the plant we have now.
Okay.
So the neighbors should not have any issue. With any treatment plant, you always have potential issues with odors, but those will be mitigated as much as possible.
And this plant will also be able to handle loading issues where there's more solids compared to water in the infrastructure. Because I know that was a problem with some older plants where you started concerning water and the plant started not working efficiently.
Well, this plant is going to be designed as much as possible for the conservation efforts of the town.
Okay.
So, although that is always an issue, this plant is in theory going to be designed to be able to operate two separate systems simultaneously, so if you do get to the point where you don't have enough liquids, either you can recycle recycled water through the system, or you can divert it to one side and run it through one side. Because if you conserve that much water where you're having mainly solids, your flow is going to be down low enough that you could probably operate on half the system.
Okay.
How low can you flow?
Okay, any other board comment? Okay, moving on to item number 5. Review and approve revised resolution 2019-07, adopting an application and inspection process with associated fee schedule, fire, life, and safety review.
Scott Young's been working on this and he will take the report.
This was brought to the board a couple months ago, and in the staff report, basically the first 2 lines sum it up. The purpose of this resolution is to modify resolution 2019-07 in order to provide clarification regarding fees for single-family dwellings. So if you look on page 2 of the fee schedule, you will notice that single-family dwellings have been added. Previously, single-family dwellings were jammed into the housing tract component, but in my opinion, that was not the proper holding place for them because there's less involved and the fees needed to be adjusted. So the fees went down from $200 to $150 for a site plan review for a single-family dwelling up to 2,500 square feet, and then 25 cents per square feet beyond 2,500 square feet. And that's our standard fee schedule for any residential, even commercial, I believe. That's the threshold, and that's a county threshold as well. It's 2,500 square feet.
And Mr. Young, that is commensurate with what other communities are charging?
Yes. I've studied fees from other jurisdictions, and prior to this being submitted, I've looked at Templeton's fee structure, Paso Robles, San Luis City, Morro Bay, Cambria, and other jurisdictions.
Okay.
Not San Miguel Canyon?
San Miguel, excuse me?
Do we have any public comment on this item? Do we have any board comment on this item?
For me, the only thing is that's getting amended, is just adding those 2 lines for single.
Yes, before they were captured in the tract element, but that wasn't fair because a tract is multiple housing units. So there are a few lots that people are building single-family homes. We've had 2 plans come in for lots on K Street, and there are a few other properties, especially up at the Bluffs, where they are building. It's a tract, but they are single-family homes. So it just seemed like the right thing to do.
How will it affect revenue?
Well, we would lose $50 per plot plan, but I believe $200 per plot plan for a single-family home is out of line. So it's a revenue. The whole fee schedule and the plan check process and the plan review process and the inspection process is a mechanism for the district to recover costs directly related to construction.
Thank you. You have any board comment? No board comment. Do we have a motion to approve the amended conflict of interest?
I'll motion to approve.
You said conflict of
Is that
interest.
what it was?
No, revised
No.
resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry. Revised resolution.
Hope it's not a conflict of interest.
Come on, madam.
5.
Yes, 5.
Bottom.
Review and approve the revised resolution. We have a motion to.
Do we have a public comment?
Yes, we
We
did.
did.
Okay. I will motion to approve.
Hector motioned, you can,
Oh, I'm sorry, I second. I didn't hear.
okay? Director Palafox,
Yes.
Director Parent,
Yes.
Director Calvins,
Yes.
Vice President Sangster.
Yes.
Passes 4-0, 1 absent.
Okay, moving on to item 6, review and discuss resolution number 2019-19, declaring hazardous use a public nuisance within the district.
This is our basic annual report that comes to you in late April, so that we send out notifications to all the addresses identified. Scott was able to tour the entire district and identify properties that had, weeds that were nuisance or hazards. So letters will go out to them notifying them to abate their weeds, and then there'll be a follow-up inspection, and they'll be put on a list for abatement. If property again is occupied, I just wanna stress to you guys, if it's a house and a property there, we won't go on private property and abate weeds and have a liability, but we do notify them and let them know in the event of a fire and they fail to follow the ordinance, they can be held responsible or liable for any damages caused by failure to comply. So other than that, all these addresses, some of these are active addresses, and a lot of them are lots that need to be abated. So this is to send out those abatement notices. And then another inspection will be done, a list will be made on ones that need to be abated, and then in June, second week of June, if they don't comply by June 1st, the second week of June, we will start cutting. So they may get a note saying that they're on the hit list to be abated, but if they go up and cut their weeds on June 6th and we start cutting on June 7th, obviously they're not going to be on the hit list. We'll only come back with a list for final approval in June, because we have to be able to send it off to the county, we have to be on the tax roll. So we're asking you just to approve the notification and letters
This is the
going out.
notice.
Notice.
Identifying the
It has to
notice,
legally be like this.
font size and everything.
Do we have any public comment on this item? No, back to the board. Is there a board comment?
I had a board comment. Has this also been, this, I know the focus has always been weeds, has this also been extended to rubbish? Because I know that kind of falls under weeds and rubbish under the law.
Blight?
Well, nuisance, anything that's, becomes, a nuisance, weeds are the nuisance, overgrowth,
Sure.
things like that, but if we have properties and we have that have accumulation of trash or combustible stuff, and we make notification any time of the year on that, but
Right.
this, the primary focus on this is about the weed abatement because of the time of the year.
Sure, I am. I just didn't know if we looked at those lots in that process of doing the tour for trash, or just focus solely on weeds.
It's all part of, what we're improving also on
Yeah.
the fire prevention portion. But this is for weeds.
Any other board comment?